hi again. I'm back. Don't worry, not for very much longer. I'm about to pass this over. We've heard from Ronald today. We've heard some of the initiatives that Inmarsat are involved in. Ronald actually touched on issues around safety and crew welfare, which is actually very much the focus of the next presentation. I will hand over straight away to Nick Chubb, who is the founder and managing director of Thetius, who have been running with Inmarsat and Shell, a very interesting crew welfare innovation challenge. But on that note, enough from me, and I'm going to hand over to you, Nick, if you could explain a bit more to everyone.
Morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Kathy. It's genuinely delightful to be here, whether we're there virtually or otherwise. It's fantastic to be back. The last proper conference I went to was in February, and it was Smart Maritime Network. So it's definitely been a hole in the calendar this year, not being able to do these. Yeah, absolutely. As you said, we're here to announce the results of our innovation lab for crew welfare. I guess first off, just a little bit about me and about us. I'm Nick Chubb. I'm the managing director of Thetius. We exist to enable innovation across the maritime sector, and we do that through three ways. The first is providing intelligence to the industry. The second is providing strategy and innovation programs, and the third is helping organizations get the right talent through the door. I'm going to just take you through a bit of an overview of the challenge that we've been running, how it's all worked, how it all came about, and then we'll hear from the startups that were shortlisted, and then we'll announce the winner. So we all obviously know about the COVID crisis that's been rumbling on across the industry, and what a devastating effect it's had on crew welfare. All the way back in April, I want to say, we were approached by our partners at Inmarsat to see if there's anything that we could do collaboratively to help solve some of those crew welfare issues that have been compounded by COVID. And we decided we want to do something that's going to have real impact, and we wanted to do something that will survive beyond the COVID crisis. And we know there's a huge amount of effort going on to help seafarers through this specific crisis, but also a lot of welfare issues that existed before the crisis and will continue on after the crisis ends. So we came up with an innovation lab concept to improve crew welfare, and there are kind of 3 steps to it. The first was running workshops and putting together some research to identify where the challenges really exist in the industry. The second was running an open call for innovators to try and find new solutions. And the third stage, which we're just about to go on to, is a funded proof of concept. The most promising bid that we've had submitted to us, we're going to run a proof of concept over the next 6 to 12 months on a Shell vessel using Inmarsat's connectivity capabilities. So just a little bit about the research. Ronald's already mentioned it, so I won't go into too much detail. But if you Google Welfare 2.0, you can see the link to go and download it. We put together a full, freely available report on sort of the next generation of welfare tech. Some of the key findings, just from a purely sort of welfare point of view, that we came out with. Number one, probably quite obvious, mental health is a growing problem at sea. I think we've all heard a lot about that recently. Number two, which is much less obvious, is that heart disease is a silent killer of seafarers. Behind accidents, it's actually the leading cause of death at sea. And the third key finding is that the 3 most important factors for managing healthcare, and that really for us, that's managing mental health and cardiac health. Those are exercise, sleep, and diet. Largely speaking, they're outside of an individual seafarer's control. So yes, there's a lot of work for individuals to do to be sure that they stay healthy. But there's also a huge amount of work that fleet management teams need to do to ensure that their crew are set up in a way that they can stay healthy. Through a workshop process, we identified 4 challenge areas. The first was improving the safety of deck operations. The second was reducing administration on board, reducing the amount of paperwork seafarers had to fill in, and enabling some kind of remote audit of what's going on the vessel. The third was sort of really an open call for any solution that could improve overall welfare and well-being on board. And the fourth was any solution that can improve how fatigue is measured and managed on board. We put that out to the world, to the industry. We issued a sort of open call with those 4 challenges, and we had startups and small medium enterprises submit bids to us, offering to create a solution to one of those 4 challenges. Interestingly enough, that the most common bid submitted was around improving overall welfare on board, and the least common, we actually had very few of these were bids for minimizing and managing fatigue on board. From those 49 bids, we pulled together the Inmarsat team and the Shell team, and we went through quite a few rounds of judging. The standard of quality was really high, so it was actually really difficult to rule companies out, but we managed to get down to a short list of 3 startups that we wanted to progress to the next stage. They are Medassist.online. They have an augmented reality enabled medical assistance application. A joint bid from 2 startups, Canary Sentinel and Workrest. They've created an intelligent fatigue management application. And third, a bid from a company called Kaiko Systems, who've created a guided survey tool and intelligent decision support system. Reps from the startups are all here. We're actually now going to just hear some highlights of the bidding, of the pitching session that they did. But I definitely recommend, if you have questions during that, just pop them in the chat, and I would encourage the startup reps to make themselves known in the chat, and possibly, if you could answer the questions as we go, I think that could work really well. But what we'll do now is we'll play you some highlights from the pitching session. The session was took an entire morning. We pulled together a judging panel of reps from Inmarsat, Shell, and ICE1 from the charity sector. But most importantly, just over 50% of the vote on who won went to a panel of volunteer seafarers. We had 5 seafarers represented from 3 countries. 2 of them were still on their ship, so it was quite a feat to bring them all together. But we had a fantastic session, and some really interesting comments and questions from the judges, which I'll play for you now.
This is where you should examine the patient. This is where you do the injection. That is very difficult. So this is for use cases. If a compressor doesn't work or a machine, you could do the same thing, provided there's a Wi-Fi connection in the neighborhood. So the functionality is more than just two-way AR, as we call it. It also gives you an opportunity to do a chat, exchange chat messages, for instance, in noisy situations. There's a button that actually translates the cameras or changes the cameras, and you can do a FaceTime, which is very good because the expert can actually see the caretaker on the ship, the captain or the senior officer, and talk to him before going further with the procedure.
Yeah, thank you, Remco, for the presentation and for having applied to this challenge. Very interesting. I have a question around using the live app for training purposes. If that was the use, who would then deliver the training? Do you have a team who can do that, or would the ship operator have to connect with the existing medical provider?
No, it's the existing medical provider. And if the shipping company decides so, we can also provide a medical service. We actually have we do our tests right now as well, or did our tests in the last year, with the medical service of the KLM. They support in-flight, but they also support offshore locations.
First of all, our solution will provide a frictionless process for logging hours that improves the accuracy of hours of rest records, a real-time fatigue insight from a combination of objective and subjective data, and assisted rostering tools to help vessel admin and crew members make the best decisions. So who are we? We're a partnership of maritime hours of rest software specialists and personal health device innovators. At Workrest, we've completely simplified the hours of rest process. We already have over 10,000 mariners in multiple sectors using the Workrest app to log and monitor the compliance of their hours of work and rest on a daily basis. Our platform has dealt with over 2.5 million days logged over the last 3.5 years. At Canary Sentinel, they've created a digital health monitoring system made up of a canary band, which is a wearable biosensor that measures health parameters and biomarkers, seamlessly synced to their proprietary app. They're working with the aviation industry to develop a health monitoring system for cabin crew, and are active in the wind energy sector, developing health monitoring tools for workers.
So I was just asking what your process is for seafarers who are identified as at risk of fatigue, or maybe already suffering with fatigue. You mentioned the effective rostering. Are there any other steps that you would take if someone was deemed severely fatigued or really at risk?
Mm-hmm. So maybe I could take this first, Tim, if unless you want to add something to it.
No, sure, go for it, and then I'll just add on if needed. Yeah,
sure. So there's a couple of things that we find. So the way we weigh this up is we look at both sides, and we look at data privacy and what each person feels comfortable with, not just from the employer perspective, but also employee perspective. And oftentimes what we found from feedback in the industries that we do, that we are operational in and that we speak to, is that people are not comfortable with sharing data. And sometimes the reasons for fatigue may not be work related. They may be because of personal problems at home, or lots of other things. So which is why we want to be able to provide the information to the crew member first, so they see that they basically see their scale, and they see where they index on that scale, and if they're on the red end of the scale. So imagine a simple traffic lighting system. If they're on that red end of that scale, then they get the first line of decision to either take some rest, get a nap, take some time out. And if it continues over time and it's deemed as a risk to the operation and an occupational risk, basically, at that point you would be notified if you were the line manager.
We provide ship managers with a new way to proactively manage the health of their. Kaiko Systems decreases the administrative burden of the crew and reduces the cognitive effort required to find and analyze information. Kaiko Systems helps seafarers to create a reliable data source for early risk identification. And Kaiko Systems allows the onshore team to track vessel health across the whole fleet, be more proactive, and as a result, reduce off-hire deficiencies and incidents. With Kaiko Systems, ship owners will be able to track, prioritize, and plan maintenance operations more effectively than ever before. And now you may be asking yourself, how do you want to do all that? And I'll get there in a minute. First, let me tell you why we are doing it. At Kaiko, we are working very hard to solve this specific problem because it's huge. Kaiko strives for massive impact in the maritime industry.
But it's not really a question for you, it's really to turn this back to the seafarers that are on the call. So how would you see this helping you on board in the way that you do things at the moment? I don't know what systems you have, whether it's paper-based or computer-based. Would you see some value in this, in helping you do your day-to-day activities on board the vessels?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much for your presentation. Incredibly useful. As a safety officer myself at the moment, I can absolutely see the benefit of this tool. I'm using a cobbled together template on a Word document and asked to put pictures in, and it becomes very subjective, and it's difficult to also track the trends over time. Yeah, something like that, pretty much. So yeah, I can definitely see the benefit, and yeah, hopefully I can sail on a vessel with something similar soon.
Thank you, Jonas. That's very encouraging, and happy that you see that issue as well. So we also talked to a lot of owner operators, and sometimes they feel a bit ashamed of admitting that things run like that, like pictures in Excel and numbers in Word. But it's really the industry standard, and there's nothing to be, nothing worth hiding there, because only together we can improve that.
I just thought it was a very good pitch, I have to say, and the concept the use of technology. Excellent.
Just the other week, I did a radio medical advice drill on the ship, where we did access radio medical advice here in New Zealand as part of a drill. And my takeaway point from that was an app like this would actually be exceptional. And
this is really important to me, and crew welfare is key. Completely agree with what Yoda said there. You know, the system is archaic. You know, it's been like this since Noah was putting on the animals on 2x2.
You know, it's the data collection that's the problem, and it's not from the security point of view. It's more the fact that she said that it would take a month to get a good ground in the data collection, and you know, like create the profile of the person. Now, if you're working 1 week on, 1 week off, how does that work?
With the ferry scenario where you're 1 week on, 1 week off, it's a great way to see your true baseline of being completely rested on leave versus what your increase fatigue and stress is. And in a way, that's probably more valuable than having 3 months of data for you being on board.
I like the phrase of shining light where people don't want it to be shone. And I think having this monitoring would allow people to see a lot of the stuff that perhaps is just not considered.
The data being recorded on board wouldn't need a load of injection later on where they're asking the same questions, because I know as a seafarer, and George will probably tell you, for one of my seafarers, when we come back asking the ship, well, why is this? Why is this? Why is this? So if we can get that right first time, we don't have to go back to those questions. So then that should reduce fatigue. It should reduce all those kind of what they see as pointless questions.
This one, for me, I think personally, was the more seafarer centered.
All three of them, because we've shortlisted them, you know, we like the ideas, and it was really good to hear everyone's feedback on it.
All right, those are the highlights of our pitching session that we ran. What I'd like to do now, before we announce the winner, is to cue in Richard and Clara from Inmarsat and Richard from Shell. And if the magic of hop-in works, there's Clara. Hi, Clara, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. And we should get Richard coming up in a second. But while we wait for Richard, Clara, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Clara Wahnich. I'm the Digital Innovation Partnerships Lead at Inmarsat. And I've worked closely with Nick and Shell to make sure, you know, we have a great pipeline of crew welfare innovation and come up with a very worthy winner.
And here's Richard. Hi, Richard, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm okay. How are you? Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yeah, I can. Yeah, sounds good. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Richard?
So Richard Holdsworth. So I'm from Shell. So I head up our maritime venturing activity. So that's working with startups and partners across all of our different maritime activities.
So I guess before we announce the winner, I think it'd be really good to hear. I mean, it was quite a high standard of applications. We had quite a lot of applications. And it'd be great to hear your perspective on why these three were the ones that were shortlisted. Richard, why don't you start us off with that?
Cool. I mean, the whole process was fantastic. I think to start with, and yeah, I mean, thank you for kind of guiding us through that. I think, you know, it was actually very, very difficult, even getting to these three. But you know, what we were doing when we sort of first identified these three, we were thinking, you know, which ones can make a real difference, which ones are also kind of innovative, because we saw a few that were kind of similar to stuff that we'd seen before, but we thought with these three, actually they were doing something that was genuinely different. And I think finally, and this is perhaps more important, we were looking for applications and opportunities where we could actually run a POC. So through this process, and I think you saw in the video, we worked very closely with Dave Cupperton, who heads up he heads up all of our vessels, looks after them. And we were constantly talking to him and saying, well, this is a great idea, but can we actually kind of take this forward? Because there are lots of fantastic ideas, and you think it's a great idea. We've got our vessels. Can we get the two to marry? So I think with all of these, we were very, very confident that when we got to that final process, where we were handing over that decision to some extent to the seafarers themselves, what we really didn't want to do is for them to come back and say, this is the one we want, and then for us to say, well, actually, we can't take that forward for some reason. So actually, when we looked at this, we said 3 innovative, slightly different, but also, yeah, we can see a path to actually running a proper POC on one of our ships. So that was very important.
And Clara, while Richard and the Shell team look after a reasonably sized fleet of ships, Inmarsat's platform potentially gives access to thousands of ships. So what was your consideration?
Yes, so there's a lot of commonalities with what Richard said. Obviously, the impact on the seafarers was, the prime criteria, an impact that would go beyond the pandemic. How feasible the POC was, how specific the problem was that they were addressing, and what they're addressing it in an innovative way. And specifically for Inmarsat, it was also, can we add value through our connectivity and digital products to what these companies are doing? Can we help them do it faster, more efficiently, scale up in a cheaper way, for example? So, with each of them, we had a different way that we could work with them, where we could see, there was a win-win situation here. So again, yes, with all this, the 3 companies of the shortlist, we would have been happy to work with on a POC. But yes, we let the seafarers, a nice one, have the deciding vote to make sure that this was really a solution that seafarers wanted and needed.
Fantastic. And the votes have all been tallied and counted. None of the startups know who the winner is yet. So there's not really much left to do other than put them out of their misery waiting. Let's make the announcement. And hopefully through the magic of this platform, we'll have the startup join us up on stage in the next minute or so. The winner of the Thetius Inmarsat Shell Innovation Lab for crew welfare is Canary Sentinel and Workrest. Congratulations, you guys. Hi, Ashley, how are you doing?
Hey, sorry, I'm still in my pajamas, but this is amazing. This is awesome. Thank you.
Let me kill my screen share, and I think we should be able to get Tim in as well.
I think I should also kill my screen share. It looked awful. But anyway, this is COVID times, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm in the second bedroom personally.
Super.
Look, congratulations. You've won the funded proof of concept. So we'll obviously talk offline after this. But what are your first thoughts?
I mean, I'm blown away for a start. I don't know where Tim is. He should be on here as well, but he's probably having connectivity problems. I mean, for me, it's extremely heartening to hear this and to see that actually the maritime industry is is moving with the times. Because I think in the past, with all the various stakeholders we've spoken to in multiple respects in the maritime industry, there wasn't this understanding of the fact that actually people are your biggest assets. And there are some real problems happening here, and those problems need to be addressed right now. And the blogs that I read as well, from seafarers directly, that talk about how there's so much going on and they're completely disregarded in the context of minimizing costs and so on and so forth. So I think the fact that right now there's this incredible step that's being taken by yourselves and leading the charge is extremely heartening for people like us who deal with the side effects of what actually goes on to people every single day.
And Tim, what's your initial thinking?
It's amazing. I'm so excited to see what can come from this. Really excited to see the results that we get, that we can combine forces. I think the excitement of taking two different companies and taking what we do and combining it together is us. Yeah, I'm very excited.
Awesome. We seem to have lost Richard temporarily, but Clara, it would be great to hear from you. Obviously, you had a vote, or Inmarsat had a vote, and really this has been decided by the Seafarer panel. But why do you think the seafarers on the panel chose the Canary Sentinel Workrest solution?
I think because it was really, I think, the most seafarer-centric solution. And you know, for the potential to have a transformational impact on, you know, deep-rooted habits that the industry has, you know, on shift patterns. And you know, I think this Open Innovation Challenge was also the opportunity to challenge ourselves, and we recognize that you know, the POC you know, might come with some obstacles and beyond the POC, but you know, if not doing it now, then when? So we're delighted to be part of this initiative. Yeah.
Fantastic. We have about 5 minutes left, so if anyone from the audience has any questions, if you just pop them into the stage chat. For Richard, Clara, Tim or Ashia, and anyone, pop it in the chat and I'll make sure it gets asked. In the meantime, Richard, I know from Shell's perspective, this was you know, one of the most interesting, compelling ones. What was the reasoning behind that decision?
I think you heard it a little bit in that section earlier on from Dave. You know, this traditional kind of shift pattern, the kind of, you know, 8 hours on, 8 hours off, or whatever it is just so established. And yet, I think, you know, and the more we've spoken internally, you kind of realise there are issues there, and actually, you know, people's fatigue changes all the time, and actually, you know, the way people are feeling and responding to their environment just doesn't naturally fit with that structured pattern. And I think it was just that kind of opportunity to challenge that very, very established kind of norm, and let's give it a go. I think, as Clara said, it was kind of interesting because to some extent this is perhaps the most difficult one to do. So there are, yeah, I mean, we can see lots of challenges to getting this done. I think it's not going to be easy, but potentially it was the most interesting in terms of really making a step change and really making a difference to something which has just been there forever. So that was what was great for us, and yeah, really looking forward to seeing how we get on, seeing how it so when we meet our ships.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly, in all of my career at sea and since I came ashore, I've never seen anyone kind of challenge that 4 on 8 off or 6 on 6 off. It's just what we do in the industry, and we've always done it. But we don't even really have a full understanding of how that impacts the health of people. So I think this is a really exciting opportunity to initially learn, and then moving on, sort of find out how we can adapt a vessel schedule to improve fatigue. So really exciting. Kathy, thanks for your question. You've asked what the next steps are. We're going to obviously take this conversation offline. We'll be working with the Canary Sentinel and Workrest teams to put together a full proof of concept plan, and over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be actually running the POC, and then from there, we'd love to come back and report back what the results have been. We've got just a couple of minutes, so I'll just ask. First off, actually, I'll say the standard was very, very high, and it was actually very, very close between all three. And I would definitely recommend, if you operate ships or you're just involved in the technology and innovation space and interested in crew welfare, definitely in the course of this conference, have a chat with Fabian. Have a chat with Remco. If we could have funded 3, we would have funded 3. We were really, really happy with everyone who ended up in the shortlist. For final words, I'll pass over to the winning startup. Ashia, Tim, can you give us can you send us off with some final words? Ashia, why don't you go first?
Sure. I mean, it's music to my ears to hear this when you say that we're going to challenge tradition. We're going to, use the tools at our disposal to make a change. And I think there was a mention earlier about IATA and about how there needs to be standards, that there needs to be a template that can be rolled out as standard operations. And I'm hoping that together with this collaboration, that we can set that standard and we can demonstrate how it can be done. Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. I would second what Richard said just now as well. It's so hard for these entrenched systems that are just, as soon as you come into the maritime industry, that's just how it was done. And if anyone questions, well, why do they do it like that? It's essentially, well, that's just the way almost everyone else does it. So especially working with a team or company in Inmarsat and Shell, you know, they would have the power to be able to challenge that. You know, really look forward to being able to provide data, meaningful data, to be able to move forward and yeah, make seafarers' crew lives better and increase that crew welfare.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Kathy and Rob and Smart Maritime Network for hosting this little reveal. Clara, Richard, it's been fantastic working with you. Looking forward to continuing that. Tim and Arshia, really looking forward to seeing what we can do together. Thank you to all of the startups and SMEs who submitted bids. Yeah, we were absolutely overwhelmed with the response. And as a final plug, if there's anyone out there who wants to run more of these challenges, we see this as the first of many. So come and chat. We'd love to bring, you know, as many corporate players together to find ways to improve life at sea, environment, safety, all of those things. So yeah, do come and shout. Thank you all, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Bye.